everyone, and welcome to our video series in our own voices. This is a video series which we now do in place of our blogs, which is where you get to hear from us and see the faces behind the articles and the thoughts. So here today I have with us our CBE Voices of Color chapter youth advocate, Shevone Torres. She is the author of several articles on Medium and also the author of Black Panther and the Effect of Cultural Appropriation on Youth of Color for CBE Voices of Color chapter. Shevone Torres is a single mother from South Jersey and an organizer for Black Lives Matter. She has been involved in activism for many years and has dedicated her life towards the liberation and upliftment of Black and Brown people. Only recently has she decided to start sharing her thoughts on social media platforms. And we are glad to have Shevone here as one of as the primary lead advocate for youth of color. And today she is going to be talking on the issue how oh, hold on a minute, when I get there, how discrimination results in misdiagnosis of youth of color. Welcome, Shevone, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. What I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is not only how children of color are misdiagnosed, but also targeted in the public school systems. There's been this tangent going around ever since the desegregation of public schools, where they're purposely targeting children of color and putting them in what they call special ed classes. Not all of them are at the part where they need to have special attention or if they have learning disabilities. That's not the case. A lot of them are being put in there because of so-called behavioral issues. And these behavioral issues can range from legitimate concerns, behavioral concerns, to those that just don't want to conform or challenge the teacher. And that's why I want to touch a little bit about. I'm not going to speak too long about this because this is a huge thing that can go on forever, but I want to talk about certain things that can happen and certain things that you can do to protect your child. And not only your child, I think it's our duty to protect other children of color when we see this happening. The main reasons that ones are targeted for special ed, because once they're put in special ed, they're dismissed. They're no longer considered credible, or they would like to, it's easier for them to push them to the school to prison pipeline if they're in special ed classes than if they were in enrichment classes. One example I will show is what happened with my son. That happened started about 2 years ago, and we're still fighting it today. My son decided to stop standing for the pledge for his protest for Colin Kaepernick, his solidarity with Colin Kaepernick. He came to me and asked me if it was okay, and of course, with me being Black Lives Matter, I'm like, go for it, son, I'm happy for you. And it started with the teacher started to question his motives, and my son explained to him what his motives were. He kept refusing to stand. It got to the point where the teacher actually wanted to put his hands on Donovan and make him stand. And Donovan told him that if you put your hands on me, I will have to call my mother. And there's another thing, that this myth that goes around within a lot of teachers, that they believe that if their child's from a single parent or if they're living below the poverty line, that the parents don't care about the children, or that the parents will automatically side with the authority figure. Well, they got the wrong one when they called me. So when they called me and I told them, I said, well, first of all, don't put your hand on my child, because I will come and this will be a whole problem with the school. I said, this is his civil rights. He has his constitutional right to refuse to stand. And I'm not going to take that from him, and neither are you. And because of that, they started targeting Donovan. Now, mind you, that year prior, they were upset because they wanted Donovan to take an IQ test. They believed Donovan was at a genius level. And what I found out going through this is that if you have a certain amount of children in what they call a college prep or an enrichment class, the school gets extra money. So when they found out how intelligent Donovan was, they wanted him to take this IQ test. Once Donovan realized it was an IQ test, that he was like, no, the IQ test is based in racism, and I refuse to take it. The counselor said out of her 20 years, Donovan was the first one to flat out refuse to take the test. And because he wouldn't take the test and because he wouldn't conform, now all of a sudden he's having learning issues. And now all of a sudden he has behavioral issues, so they want to put him in special ed. And so they want to put him in special ed last year. And his teachers are sitting there like, why is he even here? There's no reason for him to be here. And not only that, is that because he didn't want to conform, they're putting him there, and which is taking space from a student that actually could benefit from this. And some of the reasons that they would put children of color in special ed is they misdiagnose like their ability, they don't want to conform. So all of a sudden they're belligerent. And the teachers, like, let's be honest, the teachers don't want to deal with it. If they're not going to be complicit, they don't want to deal with that student, so they put them in special ed courses. If students set boundaries for themselves, the teachers will look at it and like, okay, I don't want to deal with this, and put them in these classes. If a student has a certain opinion on certain things that the teacher doesn't agree with, that's grounds for them to put them in these special ed classes. And to keep it all the way 100, and this is from some of the teachers that I spoke with, that sometimes they just don't like the student. And because they don't like that student, they would just like, I don't want to deal with it. And students, they'll ask a question. If the child may say no, or I don't want to, oh my God, their behavior problem, I don't want to deal with this, put them in special ed. Which not only does, once they put these kids in special ed, they're not getting the resources that they need. They're not getting the attention that they deserve. And they're not actually finding out what are the root causes. There were a few students that were put in special ed because of behavior problems, but not understanding that their child was going through something because that child just lost her mother, her father, and her grandmother. And they're gonna put her in special ed because, oh, she cannot be handled in this regular classroom. She needs to be in special ed. And even within special ed courses, they're purposely holding back on certain things. And when I was speaking to my son about these classes, he said most of the kids in his special ed class now don't need to be there. And a lot of them are highly intelligent. And they don't have any learning disabilities. They're not dyslexic where they need an extra teacher. So these resources are being taken and they're using it under the guise of helping these students, but they're also using it to label them. So when they get to high school, it's automatically that it's down in Donovan's record. Oh, he's dismissive, he's combative because he said he didn't want to take the test, or because my son is really strong in his convictions. It's very concrete. It doesn't have to affect him. If he sees a teacher does something that's he considers wrong to another student, he remembers that and he acts accordingly. And because of that, all of a sudden he's an issue and the teachers don't want to deal with it. But instead of going into different ways that's targeted, because it's pretty much common knowledge that they target children of color and they put them in special ed to push them to go through the school to prison pipeline, because once they're in that class, they don't get the knowledge that they should be getting to excel. They get the bare minimum. And even if they got the bare minimum, I've seen children that needed tutoring and then they're not provided that tutoring, but they're still passing them through. So, and then that's not preparing them for life and other courses that when they get older. So, and it's failing our children. So even if they want to go to college, they're not at the level at the college prep courses. And these are children that are highly intelligent. And the thing is, there's this conformity of how intelligence is supposed to be a certain way. And just because you can memorize what is in a book does not make you intelligent. And this is what they need to add to the curriculum of how different intelligence involves in different people. And with their children, everybody is different. Like there's one child that might excel at art or literature. Another one in math and science. And it could be just because they don't feel comfortable with that teacher itself. And that could be something because, like I said before, teachers have said there's times where they just don't like the student and they purposely antagonize them or whatnot, so they're not getting the proper education they need. One thing I want to talk to, just in case like that there's parents or students that's watching this, for the students, I want them to know that I hear you, I see you, and even if I don't know you, I love you and I will fight for you. And for the parents, one thing is, I know how the struggle is. Trust me, I'm one of the ones struggling too. And you can't always get up to the school. You might not have transportation to get to the school. If you have a phone, use that phone. Call and check on this, because if they feel that you don't check on your child, they will mistreat your child. And that's not, I think that is a given. They will mistreat your child. They will feel like they can do anything to your child and get away with it, because like, oh, they don't really care. And we have to put down that myth, because as long as that myth is still there, they're going to take our children, they're going to put them in these special ed classes, which is not even designed for these children. It's pretty much, the best way I can put it is, they're like pens. It's like holding pens. They're treating our children like animals, put them in these cattle plant pens. So when they get older and graduate, they're going to be ready for the slaughter, because they're not prepared. And not only that, and because our schools, people with majority of children of color in these schools, they're being defunded. And special ed doesn't even get as much funding as the other classes. So imagine what's going to happen. You have a child of color who is set in their convictions, who is intelligent and bright, and has a lot going for them. Then they're corralled into this special ed class where they're automatically labeled. And once they're labeled, the teachers, let's be honest, the teachers are not going to focus on these kids. They're not going to focus on their strengths. They're not going to actually help them if they need to get improvement. They're not going to help them with that. So they're corralling our kids. To be honest, they're getting our kids ready for slaughter. That's what they're doing, because they're pinning them up like it's a slaughterhouse, because they're not preparing our children. And this is done by design. Because if you look in more affluent white communities with these schools with their special eds classes, it's totally different from how the special eds are in this class. And they're trying to label anything that they feel that they don't want to deal with as special education. Like my son said, a lot of those children in that class do not need to be in that classroom, and they're taking up space. Another thing is they're trying to push. Another thing is I don't like to bash parents at all, especially Black parents, because I understand what's going on. There's also an alluring thing that they're doing with the parents itself. Like if a child might be autistic or may have ADHD, the teacher, the doctors will actually go to these parents and say, well, you can get a check for this child for doing this. And I'm not bashing the parents at all, because I understand. I've gone through this with my son with his ADHD. And because if you're living underneath the poverty line and you need to make ends meet, the fact that they're telling you, well, you could do this and get a check, SSI check for your child, then there'll be extra income for you. And if you don't have that money, that's something that's going to take care of your child. You're going to be willing to do it. But what they don't tell the parents after the fact is when they sign their child up for this autism or for ADHD, for the disability, that cuts them off from being able to go to college. That cuts them off from doing anything that wants to better themselves as far as an education level. It can actually impede them from getting jobs. So in essence, when you're signing your child up for SSI at this age, you're harming them when they get older. And like I said, I usually use my son as an example for this, because I don't like telling everybody else's business, and also let people know, like, I've been where you're at or what you're going through right now. My son Donovan has ADHD. And they were dead set, oh, give him this medication, give him this, give him that. We'll fill out the paperwork for you to get SSI. You'll get a check for him. You need it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not even lying. I thought about it. And I was like, well, maybe this might help my son. And I was looking at it, well, this will help my son later on in life, because then if this is a problem for him, at least he'll have some type of income. And it wasn't until I came across another Black doctor, which I love her to death. And she told me, do not put your child on that medication. Do not put your child on this SSI, because it will hurt him in the long run. And after doing some research, I found out once he turns 18, they'll cut him off the SSI check. And he'll have to go reapply for himself. And then 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, well, you don't need SSI. And when they go try to apply for jobs, that's going to be on their record. That's going to show up. So now they're going to not going to get a job. And then what's going to happen? They're going to end up going to Board of Social Services, trying to get assistance. And then on top of that, I don't even get into that, but once they get that, once you go and get a social assistant, Board of Social Services to get assistance, you can't go to college. You can't take other trades to better yourself. That is a vicious cycle, but that's for another blog. But also, the teachers in these special ed classes are pushing these parents to go and get SSI and be beneficial for them. I'm telling you, as a mother, don't do it. Don't put your kids on these medications. They don't need it. But like I said, I'm not going to tell parents how to parent their child, but I will tell you from my experience, what I do. My son has ADHD. And and because of that, I give him Mountain Dew in the morning. I give him Mountain Dew in the morning because he hates the taste of coffee. But that Mountain Dew has the same effect as these medications they're trying to put in our kids' bodies. And doing that, you're able to, and the kids are going to love it because now they get to have soda in the morning. The kids will love you forever. And I promise you that when I put you in Shady Pines when you get older, they will keep you around because you gave them soda in the morning before they went to school. And I've seen the difference of my son and his behavior, and I've seen how the special ed teachers are behaving. Now, I will say that our special ed teachers, they're all wonderful and they're great, and I love them and I'm grateful for them. But at the same time, they're not given the resources to help these children. And in order for that, this is where we come in as parents. We're going to have to go in there and we're going to have to, you can go into school and you can say, what's going on with my child? You can say, what is the curriculum? I've went and asked the teacher, what is the syllabus for the year? What are they doing for this year? How is this going to benefit my child? And these are things we need to do. And because we're not going to put this on the children because it's not their fault. And as parents, it's our job to protect our children. And just because the teacher is an authority figure does not make them right. Like there will be teachers that are like, oh, well, I'm the teacher, the child's a student, I don't have to answer to them. But guess what? You're the parent, so the teacher will answer to you. And you're going to have to be an advocate for your child. Because there's not a lot of us out here advocating for children. So in order to that, we have to do our part, and we have to advocate not only for our own children, but for children in the same schools that we're seeing that's going on in this pattern. Because that one child that doesn't have that advocate, maybe that parent can't do that. Maybe they don't have the ability to do or the capacity. So now this child is going to be followed by the wayside. And because, like I said, because they're put in special ed, now they're in behavioral, especially if they're a behavioral problem, they'll look for any reason to suspend them, or they will be personally targeted by the so-called security at the school, be it troublemakers, and they'll find any reason to put them in detention, in school suspension, suspend them out of school. And then that's not helping the child either. And they're not getting to and if they do have any type of behavioral problems, they're not trying to get to the root of it. It could be there's something trauma going on at home that's causing them to act out in school. It might be a cry for help. And because these are children of color, they're looking at it, oh, these are some ghetto hood kids, and this is how their family is, and this is how they're raised, so I'm not going to pay attention, not realizing maybe that child is going through trouble because maybe he sat there or he or she witnessed her mother being abused. Or maybe they witnessed, or they're being abused themselves at home. And I will be honest, I'm gonna keep it 100 because we know in our Black houses, we are taught what goes on in the house stays in the house. And that is something that we need to work on because it's not fair to these children. Yes, we understand our need for privacy, but the fact is you're telling them this is also exacerbating the special ed courses that they're putting our children in. Because if they're able to tell you, I'm going through something with at home, I don't feel comfortable at home, that doesn't necessarily make you a bad parent. The fact that you're acknowledged that there's issues that you can't control and you need help with, and you want the best for your child. You have to look at it like that. Because let's be honest, these are children of color. Nobody's going to care about them when they get older. They don't care about them now. Because Tamir and all of us on this show, they don't care about our children. We're going to have to step up, and we're going to have to become a village and take care of each other's children. And that's something that we need to bring back, because I remember back in the day, like, you get in trouble, your neighbor's going to get you. and then you get home, you're in trouble because the neighbor had to get you. Well, I'm down a little bit, but all this all ties into the special education system, because at the end of the day, it's set up there to have your child set up for the school to prison pipeline. And once they do that, now they have cops at these schools, and they have them really close to the special education classes. And things that normal teenagers or children will do, they get penalized harsher for it. And they're arresting these special ed students. And on top of that, they're not, like I said, they're not giving the ones that actually need this special education the time and effort, because they're too busy putting people who they say that don't want to conform into these classes. But I'm going to wrap up now. I appreciate having this webinar. I appreciate giving the opportunity. I know it's a short amount of time. There's so much to talk on and touch on, but this will continue again. Hopefully we'll do this again, and we'll go into different issues that's going on, because they're all tied in together. But I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate you. Again, my name is Shevone Torres, and I hope you have a blessed and happy day.